Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us on the Owners Call. As many of you already know, Liqui-Grow is a family-owned business based out of the Quad Cities. That's where we sit today. Don't be surprised that we all share the same last name. I'm Chris Tinsman, and I'll be leading the call. We believe in honesty and transparency in everyday part of our business. We hope you feel that at the location and with the agronomy field advisor that you're currently working with. And this call is simply a continuation of that. We apply that today as we're going to be covering market trends, industry updates, and a few other things that are happening within our company. We definitely hope that the information that you learned today is going to be helpful for you as you start crop year 2025. And first up, we're going to be going over the chemistry industry update from our president, Hub Tinsman. Take it away, Hub.
Great. Thanks a lot, Chris. Welcome, everybody, and thanks for joining us this morning. I'm going to break this down into 4 different items, not necessarily in a level of importance, but just 4 different items that come to peace of mind for both all of you and for me. First and foremost is what are happening to prices from 24 into 25 on most of the lead chemical products. And as some of you may know, and a lot of you will be learning over the next 6 or 8 weeks, most prices are either flat to down 5 to 6%. So we are seeing a trend towards prices moving downward, not on everything, but on most things. A few exceptions would be like you'll find out that 2,4-D as a whole is definitely up dramatically in terms of a percent. But when you compare that to a cost per acre after you take the rate into account, it's not as nearly as big. And this is coming off the 5-year low, which would have been 12 months ago. Not sure yet how potential looming tariffs might affect imported parts of AI and or inert ingredients. That's to be determined, but probably won't have much of an impact for 25. It'd be more of a 26 factor, as a lot of the AIs are already in place, or at least agreements have been made without necessarily knowing whether tariffs will have any impact. The one thing that could have an impact on pricing as we move into April, May, June timeframe, and that is the cost of transportation and trucking. It's expected that there will be some increases in transportation costs after the March time period. So know that that could have some impact on post products, at least unless they're in both our warehouses or in your hands before we get to the 1st of June. Supply is in very good shape for most of the products, especially that's true for glyphosate and glufosinate. Glufosinate would be the active ingredient in Liberty. Supply is on par with what's expected to be a very high demand, but there's been a tremendous change in the worldwide capacity for manufacturing of glufosinate, so there shouldn't be any supply issues in terms of that product. We're seeing some continuation of the very low cost volunteer corn product. That market took a dramatic change from 23 into 24. It appears that's going to stay flat when we look at 25, but the cost for volunteer corn products for post-applied in beans appears to be at a much lower cost when you compare it to 23. Speaking of that, let's look at atrazine. Atrazine, one of the better used products in terms of broadleafs for corn, continues to be in very good supply. The only thing that is the potential watch out here is there could be some supply hiccups as we move into post application, meaning after May 20th time period. But in terms of anything for the pre, supply is in good shape, price is lower, so should be in good shape there. Let's talk a minute about new compounds for 25. And when I talk about new compounds, I'm talking about AIs. There are no new AIs. There's just reformulation of current products in play. And I'll use Liberty Ultra as an example. Liberty Ultra is a new formulation, a higher isomer load, kind of similar to how Dual Magnum basically morphed into Dual 2 Magnum. So you'll notice that it's a higher concentration, as I mentioned, higher isomer load, which means a lower rate per acre usage. We continue to see a shift from dicamba acres to the Enlist trait and the Enlist products being used in beans. Expect to have a large uptick in that again. There's obviously the EPA registration restrictions in terms of dicamba continues to have an impact there as well. There's also been a strong push to use the right adjuvant for post products. It's important that the agronomy field advisor from Liqui-Grow give you the direction that needs to be the most effective adjuvant for the product being used in a post application situation. And those have changed a little bit from 24 into 25. but there's a whole array and a suite of adjuvant offerings that it's up to us to basically give you the right direction there. Lastly, there continues to be a strong demand for both corn and bean pre's. To get the front edge on water hemp especially, but other problem pesky weeds, we're seeing a change in rates going up to more what I'd call the full rate supply as a pre. And note that basically if you start the foundation with a strong pre, the likelihood that you'll have to spend as much money for a post will be much more economically beneficial for you. So we're seeing a large change, probably actually a change maybe to the tune of 15 or 20% higher rate increase for both corn and bean pre's, but especially corn pre's. So note to yourself, a strong pre-foundation will make for a lesser costly post-application. Okay, Chris, that gives us kind of the quick updates for ag chemistry.
Yeah, thanks, Hub, and hopefully that can ease people's minds as we enter the prepay period for that December-January timeframe. Obviously, if anyone has any other questions, you can always call your Liqui-Grow agronomy field advisor at your Liqui-Grow location. Next up, we have John Tinsman with us today. John is my brother and is leading our fertilizer procurement role within our business, along with many other hats that he and I both wear. But go ahead and take it away for us, John. Tell us about what's happening in the fertilizer world.
Morning, everyone. Nitrogen continues its price appreciation, whether that's urea, ammonia, or UAN. They're all up on the world markets. The anhydrous ammonia winter fill just came out, and it's 25% above what fall prices were. So we can expect to maybe see UAN prices start to catch up with the appreciation in anhydrous ammonia. I'd expect that there's probably another 10% price appreciation over the next couple months versus what retail prices are today. Potash, there has been no winter fill yet, so it's hard to tell exactly what that pricing is going to look like for spring. That being said, the world market has fallen by 5% since fall. So it's possible that it's around the same or slightly below or slightly above. That still has to be worked out. Russia and Belarus have been unhappy with the prices of potash in the world markets, and they've been threatening now for the last 6 months to cut their production to push prices up. However, there's a new Canadian mine that comes online, and it's going to add 10% to more production capacity to the world. And that's supposed to open in late 2025 or 2026. So part of me thinks from a common sense standpoint, you don't want to end this next year with a lot of product and extra inventory. So part of me thinks that these people have a strong incentive not to cut production, but to continue to maximize production before a new mine comes online. When we start talking about phosphates, that one is going to be really highly dependent on tariffs. Right now, it's held steady. There was a strong price appreciation during fall, but for the last 3 months, the prices have been remarkably steady in phosphates, and they look right now to continue that steadiness. In terms of the macroeconomics that can affect these things, the Trump tariffs, there's been talks of a 25% tariff possibly on China and Canada and Mexico if they don't do certain things the Trump administration wants them to, whether that's cracking down on border security or illegal drug smuggling into the United States, things like that. So if there's a 25% tariff on products coming in from Canada, that's where most of the US's potash comes from, and that would be very bad. That would push prices up quite a bit. I don't think we're going to get there. I think it's a negotiating tactic, but it is something to keep in mind. A 10% blanket tariff on imports, that would also affect Canadian potash. It would affect most of the phosphate that gets brought into the US as well. So that could push those prices up by 10% if they go into effect. In terms of interest rates have been, the Fed has been cutting interest rates. This is good for the U.S. farmer that has to borrow for their operations. This frees up capital, lowers interest expenses. Inflation has been remarkably low given the very large government deficit. The government deficit is just like printing money, and when you print money, you cause inflation. So I've been surprised that inflation has only come in at 2.8%. That being said, the new administration coming in, the Trump administration, there's this Doge or Doggy, however you say it, and they really want to cut costs and try to limit this deficit. If they're able to cut costs and limit the deficit, that would push inflation much lower and would give a rise to further rate cuts, which would be very good for businesses and farmers. It would help things, operate more efficiently, and lower interest expenses would be paid, whether it's by the nitrogen manufacturers or potash, or by the farmer, or by people like us. So all of that would lower costs, and it would be very good. So hopefully we see that the government deficit shrinks and that we can lower the interest rates. The Fed can lower interest rates to keep them in line with falling inflation rates. There's quite a bit of Brazil dysfunction in their political system and their economic system right now. And that could limit their planting or their ability to effectively export their grains, which would be good for the U.S. farmer. At the same time, there's been a lot of strength in the Argentina ag sector, which could partially offset that. So that's all I have for you guys today.
All right, John, thanks a lot. As always, the more that we have planned in advance, the better experience we can provide to the farmers. So hopefully that was helpful for you and the farmers, and continuing to plan for what's going on at your operations. Maybe there are certain things that were not thought about, and now maybe they're in the front of your mind. I'll be going over some different capital expenditures that we have going on within our company. That's part of my role of overseeing some of these location projects, along with fleet management, which I'll be briefly touching on. First up is Mount Pleasant. We're doing a large automation update at that location. This started with increasing the fertilizer storage that we have at that location. We're going to start doing a true automated mix plant. Now, this is not very different than what we already have in place at many of our other locations. Mount Pleasant is just a little bit behind the 8 ball, as they do not have that quite yet. The manager, Greg Steele, has been mixing all that chemical and fertilizer himself. So hopefully that eases up tension and stress that he might be seeing. That allows him to be out and managing the location and continuing sales and leading his team. That automation mix plant might not change the way that the product gets out to your field, or what that product looks like getting out to your field, but that definitely helps us behind the scenes, making sure that nurse trucks are continuing to move quickly and get through that Mount Pleasant plant, and keeping up with our applicators that we have rolling. Second, we're doing a large expansion at the Clear Lake location. Once again, that started with adding a fertilizer, increasing the fertilizer storage and chemical storage that we have out there. We're going to be building a building towards the south of the pre-existing office. That will be an indoor 2-bay loadout system that allows our trucks, but also customer trucks, to pull into that facility, fill their trucks in a safe, enclosed manner, and make it back out to the field. That would include updating that automation system as well, obviously building that building, but also redoing the road. So that location is in for a drastic makeover. Lastly, we're continuing to roll our fleet. As new equipment comes to the market, we're replacing some of the older machines that we have. We're currently operating 110 application machines with an additional 210 Class A and Class B trucks that support them. We'll continue to buy new equipment for the post side of our fleet that will include individual nozzle control for better spray coverage, but especially with those fields that have a lot of waterways and cutouts within them, and hopefully maximizing the spray coverage. For our floaters, we're going to continue to upgrade some of those machines so that they're capable of applicating the exact strip process that we currently have on the market. That has to do with fertilizer placement using sub-inch accuracy, so that we can line up our floaters in a nice stream of fertilizer directly over where your plant is going to be planted and where your planter is going to be rolling. Lastly, some of you might have seen a Liqui-Grow employee in a side-by-side mapping your fields. That is to help those two topics that I just covered. That is to help that individual nozzle control, but also some of our floaters. You know, we decided to invest in side-by-sides because we can see that the market and the foundation of a lot of this new technology and precision agriculture is the foundation of it is all based around the mapping process and having solid boundaries. Now, we're not charging any of our customers for that mapping process, but I'd also like to remind you all that that mapping is for our machines, and there might be needed some tweaking and adjustments before you make it for your planters if you want to follow those same maps. Obviously, our team, but also anyone that you're working with at the John Deere dealerships or any other company dealerships can help you out with. I do have some concerns as we have hit a large change since the COVID time period. There's been a lot more equipment sitting on the dealerships' parking lots, and I think we're starting to see some of that pricing either come down or, quite frankly, better deals that are out there. I know some dealerships have gone as far as having some auctions. I continue to have some concern about what the product quality is going to be coming from these tractor manufacturers, as many of them are having layoffs and are trying to cut costs. So that's just something to be aware of if you're thinking about buying a new piece of equipment. Obviously, more and more technology is going into this equipment, and as some of you might have already experienced, one loose wire, one broken camera might shut down your tractor for a while until that technician can make it out to your farm. That's all I want to cover in terms of the equipment and some of the capital expenditures. We're going to be having our Lead Academy this winter. That's going to be some videos that are going to be released on the YouTube page. That starts in the month of January and rolls through February. We're going to be releasing a new video every Monday, and that goes over a lot of Jake Bossenkemper's research that he's done in the crop year of 2024. So that is new cutting edge research. If you have questions about how much fertilizer to be using, if you have questions about biologicals, those are definitely topics he's going to be covering. That concludes what we have planned. So I thank you for joining this edition of the Owner's Corner, that we can showcase a little of the work that we do every day here at the corporate office, but also at our locations. Our mission has always been to provide innovative crop solution, quality nutrient products, knowledgeable staff, and dependable service to satisfy our growers' needs. I hope you feel that every day as you work with us. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.